Okay, I know that Kentucky has some things to clean up before they make a run in the postseason, but wins like this one tonight prove that Kentucky is gearing up to make a run in March Madness.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, writer for various SEC-related things, but on this podcast, we take a dive into all things Kentucky athletics. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can make every moment more, and new customers, if you join today, you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. You can visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. On today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be recapping Kentucky basketball's 91-89 victory over the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Tough environment, really physical team, a really good team, as a matter of fact, but the Kentucky Wildcats were able to pull it out at the very end of the game, thanks due in part to Reeves Shepard playing the hero. Gonna dive into what happened in this game, the positives, the negatives, and I think it all adds up to one big clear picture. Kentucky's got some things to work on, but they are ready to make a run at March Madness. Thank you so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. If you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the show. And if you're listening on podcast, subscribe there as well. So let's go ahead and get into it. Like I mentioned, 91-89, the Wildcats victorious on the road over the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Quick house cleaning notes here about the Bulldogs and their overall metrics. This is a quadrant 1 victory for Kentucky, so they move to 6-5 in quad 1 play. Can't remember the last time that Kentucky was this positive, was positive period in quad 1 wins and losses this late in the season. Something else you may want to know about the adjusted efficiencies for the Wildcats: Kentucky, number 6 in the country in offensive efficiency, now hold the number 1 spot in three-point percentage at 40.7%, and then they dropped to 86th in adjusted defensive efficiency, which was only, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think an 8-spot drop, 7-spot drop, which is really not that bad, all things considered, especially considering the fact that State scored 89 points. So let's go ahead and dive into it here. Obviously, we're going to talk about Reeves Shepard to start things off here for the Wildcats. An incredible, amazing performance from Reeves Shepard coming off the bench. There was a stretch there. For, I would say, 6 to 7 games through the SEC slate, where I was really beginning to wonder if Reeves Shepard had just kind of tapered off in this rotation. Just a little bit. He was still being efficient, but there were some negatives that you started to see rise when it comes to talking about the different things that he does on the court, his game, and how he projects out for the rest of the season. Saw, I think, a couple more turnovers than expected. Saw him not necessarily take advantage of certain situations, whether it be the opportunity to shoot, the opportunity to dish, the opportunity to not ball watch on defense, and he had some moments in this game where he struggled. He did. But it's really hard to argue with 32 points on 11 of 14 shooting, 4 of 7 from beyond the arc, made all 6 of his free throws, had 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 blocks, and 2 steals, and 35 minutes of play. That is your 6'3" guard coming off the bench, 2 blocks, 2 steals to go along with 32 points on 11 of 14 shooting. There is nothing else to say. Other than that, Shepard had a phenomenal game. Arguably his best of the season. I think it's pretty clear. 32 points, it's the best of the season. Now, there were some things that happened late in the game that gave cause for concern. Obviously, the turnover after he was bringing it up the court, where he could have either called a timeout or tried to draw a foul while State was hounding him, but he elected to throw the ball up the court. The ball was stolen Tolu Smith jumped in the air, knocked Antonio Reeves to the ground, who was also going for the ball, and a foul was called on Reeves. So after we talk here a little bit more about Shepard, I do kind of want to get into what else was really bugging me in this game. We'll start with the first thing that bugged me in this game. But Shepard, I don't think you're going to see a more valuable tandem of guards coming off the bench with him and Rob Dillingham. Dillingham, by the way, didn't have a great night. 9 points on 2 of 7, shooting 1 of 4 from 3. Tried to force some things early in that first half, picked up a couple of fouls, had to sit, only played 16 minutes. Didn't look that great. Had a really big defensive lapse in the first half as well. Sorry, guys, I'm fighting off a cough here. But Reed, with his efficiency, his vision, his ability to get really clutch steals, and just ability to make plays in the clutch period, alongside Dillingham, I would be very hard-pressed to find another backcourt in the country, period, that can significantly outplay these two. On top of that, I don't think you're going to find a better bench backcourt in the entire nation. In terms of efficiency, in terms of explosiveness, in terms of defense, yeah, you could probably find some guys. But the way that they lead out there as freshmen is super, super impressive. Props to Reed Sheppard. Props to this entire team for going out there and kind of closing out this one strong. All right, so the big thing that really bugged me in this game was the officiating. And I know that it's typical of college basketball fans, people who just watch the game, people who are not out there officiating. It's typical to go out there and complain about what you see. You complain about fouls, you complain about lack of fouls, and I think we saw today some inconsistencies that even people who have officiated the game before would say, okay, what on earth is going on here? Because there were so many different there were so many different fouls that could have been called in this game. And I'll say on both ends of the floor, I'll say that both ways you could have absolutely called fouls, but the way that Mississippi State wanted to pound the ball inside, I mean, it was so genuinely impressive. The amount of times that Tolu Smith or Cam Matthews or DJ Jeffries would go into the paint and just throw a shoulder or their entire body into the Kentucky defender, knock them back, and then just lay the ball in. And there's a line between just out-muscling somebody, bully ball, and that stuff that we saw today. It took Tolu Smith throwing a 7'2", 230-pound center to the ground in the second half for them to finally call an offensive foul. Both ways, the officiating was terrible. Both ways. But there were a lot of things that happened around the rim tonight that were extremely unacceptable in a normal environment with normal officials. It was bad. It was really bad on both sides of the ball. SEC officiating has just isn't good. I think it's safe to say that. And tonight was another very poor example of just lack of consistency on both ends. Because on one end, you would have a really physical play, and it's not called a foul. And then on the other end, you would have an off-ball situation sometimes where somebody would put their hand on a player, whistle, foul. It was really inconsistent on both sides. So, nevertheless, Reed Sheppard, Kentucky basketball, managed to pull it out. Let's dive further here into some of the different things that Kentucky basketball did well in this game. Before we get into those, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. You can get buckets with your first bet over on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all of your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. So you can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, shoot your shot. Again, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon to shoot your shot with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, continuing along here on the Tuesday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Quick pause for water here on the show, as I am really struggling with some sinuses today. But nevertheless, we are delighted to discuss Kentucky basketball's 91-89 victory over the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Again, quad one victory for the Wildcats. Reeves Sheppard lays the ball in at the buzzer to give Kentucky a 2-point win. I said Kentucky was going to win this game by 2. I didn't think it would be as high scoring as the previous matchup between these two teams in Rupp Arena. 90-77 was the final score there. But Kentucky able to pull this one out, scored 56 points in the second half. They were down by 8 at the break. They were down by, at one point, 13 with 18 minutes to go in the second half. And then Kentucky took a lead, like, late. I want to say, like, within, like, with like 4 minutes to go in the game. And then after that, they started to do something that they've done in most of these highly competitive games. You've seen on the road at Arkansas, neutral site against North Carolina, the game against on the road at Auburn. You saw Kentucky just kind of take over. They led by 8 with 57 seconds left. And then Mississippi State just started throwing up haymakers. Just started chucking up shots. Josh Hubbard, 34 points, 11 of 24 from the floor, but 7 of 14 from beyond the arc. Only had 1 assist in 35 minutes. He was out there to do one thing, Josh Hubbard, and it was chuck shots and get buckets. And ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly what Josh Hubbard did. I thought that Smith would be the leading scorer in this game. I really did. But 34 points from Josh Hubbard. I mean, it really did come down to, okay, Kentucky at times with their lack of defense at the guard position has really struggled to even hold inefficient guards who take a large volume of shots. We've seen that before. Can they hold Hubbard? The answer was no. And they also couldn't hold Tolu Smith. And here's a negative for you, if we're going to continue to talk about maybe some things that went wrong for UK outside of just Reeves Sheppard balling out. Ugonna Onyenso finished with 0 points, 2 rebounds, no blocks, a turnover, 2 fouls, and minus 21 in the plus-minus category. Minus 21. He, for a lack of a better term, got bullied against Tolu Smith. And it brings in some concerns for UK when they get to March, when they get to the NCAA tournament. Are they going to be able to consistently pull themselves out of the ditch whenever their center is not able to match up with the physicality of another team? The answer was yes tonight, because State as a whole is not the most efficient team in the nation. They were going to take their lumps in the second half. They did. It ended up costing them late after they ended up coughing up 15 turnovers, and Kentucky capitalized with 20 points off of those turnovers. But Kentucky, I think that's something to be concerned about moving forward. Does Kentucky have the center to match up with teams in the tournament? Because they've got the guard play. And we talk here about Shepard, but let's stop and give Antonio Reeves his flowers. We talked highly of Antonio after the Alabama game, just how quietly he gets his shots. He ended up going for 21 points tonight, 8 of 15 from the floor, so plus 50% shooting. Was only 2 of 7 from beyond the arc, but had a couple of assists, a couple rebounds, 37 minutes of play. He gets buckets. And I'm going to continue to reiterate it. Reeves has done a phenomenal job developing his game to the point where he doesn't have to rely on his outside shot to get points. Point being, tonight, against a really physical team, he was able to get 21 and have just 2 makes from beyond the arc. Just 6 points. It's really, really impressive what he's been able to do. And it kind of, if we're going to go back to positives here, tonight was kind of a reflection of what we thought was going to be the case coming into the season. Okay, Kentucky's got 4 guards. 4 guards that they really like. Wagner, Reeves, Dillingham, Sheppard. And every single night, you're going to get one of their best games. One of them is going to have one of their best games. At least. If you get 2, you're going to have a tough time. If 3 of them are clicking, you're not winning the game. And if all 4 of them are contributing in some way, shape, or form at a high level, you're getting blown out. Tonight, you had 2. You had Shepard and you had Reeves. And Wagner, by the way, played a pretty good game as well. He only scored 10 points, but he was 3 of 5 from the floor, 2 of 4 from beyond the arc. Had 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 4 assists to just 2 turnovers in 28 minutes. Calmly got his numbers. Got his stuff going. So you essentially got 2.5, and Kentucky ends up scoring 91 in the process. That's tough to beat. Even when the defense is not playing well, that's tough to beat. And we'll wrap this up here. Let's talk about Kentucky's defense, just looking ahead, and about how I think this is all going to be okay. I think Kentucky is going to probably set themselves up to make a legitimate run here starting in the SEC tournament. I think they're putting it together. They've got to work on some things, but I think they're putting it together. Before we dive into all of that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Game Time. Let's say you want to catch one of the last games of the season at Rupp Arena. This Saturday against Arkansas, or next Wednesday, Senior Day, against Vanderbilt. If you wait until the last minute to get those tickets, that's fine. It's not great, but it's fine. Let's say you wait last minute. Let's say you want them right now. The best place to go and check out tickets is at Game Time, because they are the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all of the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. Right now, all users get $100 off when they buy a big game ticket with code VEGAS100. Again, Game Time's got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from the seat, and their best price guarantee. They take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Again, it's not just sports. You can get deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, comedy, theater, all different kinds of events in your area. And Game Time has a guarantee that means you'll always get the best price. And if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So if you want to go check out Senior Day against Vandy, or maybe the game against Arkansas this weekend, you need to take the guesswork out of buying those tickets and head over to Game Time. Again, right now, all users get $100 off a big game ticket with code VEGAS100. Terms apply. Just download the Game Time app and use code VEGAS100 for $100 off a big game ticket. Or if you're not going to the game, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, wrapping up the Tuesday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. One more time, I'm going to reach for the water here to wrap up the show. Yeah, because I am fighting off cough every other second. So, wrapping up the show here, let's talk about the defense for Kentucky basketball. So, the offense was fine. It was pretty good. 55% from the floor. You made 10 threes. You shot 88% from the foul line. You got 20 points off of turnovers. Great. Mississippi State in this one shot 52% from the floor, 44% from three. That was largely due in part to Josh Hubbard's heroics at the end of the game, where he just started nailing shot after shot after shot to pull them within 2, within 1, and then tie the game. at the very end before Shepard just said, nope, it's over. The concern here, again, about Kentucky is their defense, I think. An opponent that statistically on the year, we'll go check this out real quick, shoots 32.7% from beyond the arc. 233rd in the country. It's not good. They went 11 of 25. Some of those threes were buck naked, wide open. I mean, they couldn't be more open. If I was in the game and I caught that pass from one of Mississippi State's guards on a kick out on some of those wide open threes, I would have. If you gave me 5 shots, I would have made one of them. I would have definitely made one of them. I mean, it was that wide open. It was like there is nothing deterring me from hitting this shot. In fact, there's aid because of the momentum in the crowd and the excitement behind. Oh, yep, I'm making the shot. Kentucky's got to get better at not ball watching and staying focused and closing out on some of these teams. And I think they're getting better at it. I think tonight you saw a team that you may not run into again. And what I mean by that is you probably saw a team in terms of physicality and style of play. You're probably not going to run into a team that can do it as well as State can. This is a good Bulldogs team. Really, really good team. But Kentucky's got to pick it up. They do. And again, I think that you can point to different results and see that happening. You can see it in moments against Alabama. You could definitely see it against Auburn. It's just a matter of finding that consistency. And I think I said it during the preview for this game. Kentucky, if they can just string it together for 3 games, it's something they've not been able to do this entire conference slate. Just string 3 straight wins together. 3. And you'll start to see some life. And you have the chance this weekend to go in there against Arkansas and get that going. You've beaten the Hogs once. Can you do it again? Depends on which Kentucky team shows up. And I'm starting to hope that the team like the one we saw against Bama, and part of what we saw tonight, especially in the second half, I hope we see more of that. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at LanceDahl_ and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Have a great rest of your day, everyone, and God bless.